Good evening. So it's been a couple of weeks since I did my last video. I've been busy on nights, so apologies I've not updated anything. Just life gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it? So you might be familiar with this aircraft. I've already covered it as part of the Hawker lineage of fighters I did a few months back. But I thought I'd come and do this again because one, it's a magnificent looking aircraft, and two, it's a pilot who was relatively local to me. And a quite renowned pilot, Mr. Basil Stapleton. So before we get into the aircraft, a little bit of history around Basil Stapleton. So his full name was Basil Gerald Stapleton, nicknamed Stampme. He preferred to be called Gerald, because clearly wasn't too fond of the name Basil. And he was born in South Africa on May the 1st, 1920. And the reason he's quite local to me is that he was one of the pilots of 603 Squadron who were based at RAF Hornchurch. And he was a Battle of Britain ace and had a very revered career through the RAF, finishing up on Typhoons, i.e. this one. So a little bit of history about in Battle of Britain. He had 6 confirmed kills, 2 shared, 8 probables and 2 damaged. So he was one of the leading pilots in the Battle of Britain. He flew alongside quite a familiar pilot to you all in the Battle of Britain, Richard Hillary, who wrote quite a famous book. And he was really fond of Stapleton, and sort of revered to him quite a lot in that book. But probably his greatest moment in the RAF was the moment he shot down a pilot called Franz von Vera. And he was the only German pilot to escape the Allied prisoner of war camps during the war, and ended up writing the famous book, and which became the famous film, The One That Got Away. And there's quite a famous tale of how Stapleton literally chased him at treetop level all the way through Essex into the Kent countryside, and eventually Van Vera had to force land in a field. But Stapleton didn't know it was actually him who shot down until after the war, which is quite curious. In terms of his other RAF history, after the Battle of Britain, he spent time on Hurricanes, being launched off of merchant ships in the Atlantic and then having to ditch in the drink and hopefully survive that, before then going on to being an instructor at Central Gunnery School. And then he joined the 124 wing of the 2nd Tactical Air Force, flying Typhoons from the French airfields after the Allied invasion, offering aerial support in this aircraft here, which is obviously the 2nd Tactical Air Force wing, in the China-British Squadron with the quite garish red and yellow nose. And also, I'm sure you have a look at the pictorial review later, but the quite famous eagle with a Typhoon rocket sticking out of it, which was quite a unique artwork for the time. And this aircraft was eventually shot down on the 23rd of December 1944 by a flak strike, and Stapleton was then interned in prisoner of war camps. Unfortunately, literally crash landed 2 miles behind German lines, so incredibly close, but his engine packed up on him, and ended up being taken prisoner of war and then released in 1945, before then spending some time flying for BOAC, and unfortunately passing away in 2010. So a little bit of history around Stapleton there. I thought I'd do the Typhoon today, also for the reason that this morning the Typhoon Preservation Group, led by Sam Worthington-Lees, have announced that their ARCO at Duxford will be taking on the restoration and subletting a lot of work out for the Typhoon restoration. And I think that's fantastic news. An aircraft that we've not had a chance to see. There's only one in Britain, which has just been at Coningsby actually. And it's been amazing to see that for the 80th anniversary of D-Day in hopefully 2024. So great news coming out from there for the historic aircraft scene. Not to forget that eventually ARCO will be operating a Mosquito as well at Duxford. So exciting times ahead for us airshow followers. So a little bit about the aircraft. So the Typhoon is one of Corgi's better castings, I think. Corgi's better castings, should I say. Always seems to sell really well. I've got the latest one, which is Pulverizer, which come unfortunately with the 500 kilogram bombs instead of the 1,000 pounders. Hopefully, and if the marketing's up to scratch, with it being the 75th anniversary of D-Day next year, we should see another D-Day Typhoon produced. I think there's 3 in total at the moment. So you've got the bomb foam, you've got this one, and the other rocket firing one with the full D-Day stripes. I think it's a no-brainer for me. They always seem to sell out really, really well. Pulverizer was really well received. I think there's more room for another one. I'm not quite sure whether it'd be rocket or bombs or whether it'd just be a standard load, but a D-Day Typhoon just looks absolutely magnificent. So a little bit about the aircraft. As you can see, you know, it's got the part D-Day stripe, so this would be when the aircraft was supporting Operation Market Garden. For anyone who's seen A Bridge Too Far, the Typhoon's role is played by Harvards dressed up in D-Day stripes, as I was done flying. But as you can see, the half D-Day markings there, which was generally a trend post D-Day to just make sure the Allies obviously could recognise their own aircraft. Again, as I've already touched on, the red and yellow garish spinner, which adds a real sort of look to it. And this is, remember, the later Typhoon, the Mark 1B with the four-bladed prop with the almighty Napier Sabre in there. The sight, if anyone's seen one of those engines up close, it's a real beast of an engine. So it'd be interesting to see getting one of them up and running once the Typhoon restoration kicks in. But that's just a great mould, great looking aircraft. And like I said, there's only one left now, which, you know, fortunately is going back. It's just arrived back at the RAF Museum in Hendon to be reassembled at some point. But a lot of people had a close look at it whilst it was at Coningsby with the Battle Brick Memorial flight this summer after returning from Canada. So yeah, just thought I'd do a little bit on the Typhoon today, and a bit of a close sort of. I've done some pictures as well, which I'll put up with a written review, a little bit of history around Basil Stapleton as well. But hopefully we'll see another one of these next year. Thanks for all the likes again on Instagram. It seems to be climbing day after day. It's almost a full-time job now. I know Dan will be doing a review tonight, so I'll let him crack on with that, and you'll hopefully see some pictures and that on the site tomorrow. Have a good week. Speak to you soon. Bye bye.